Lance Bass? All right, found my guy. Brian Bumgardner. You know who that is?
Brian Bumgardner. The last name is fucking with me.
I'm
Cause like
so horny. You didn't let me finish. Let me finish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, might not be a bad one. He actually, I think he's made the most. Damn it,
Guys.
Let me finish.
Can I finish? Can I finish?
That's it.
I said I like watching it because they make me horny.
I think
Kevin.
I think he. God damn it! I think he might have been the number 1 Cameo guy last year. For some reason, that's in my head that I saw he made the most money on Cameo.
I saw Shooter McGavin on there.
I saw I saw WWE will only let. The only reason I knew Undertaker was like $500 or something like that is WWE will only let they will only allow a certain amount of people to do it. And he obviously, I don't think he has a contract with them anymore. But the reason I came across the article was there's like a handful of wrestlers they allow to do it. So there's a big stink a few months ago about this one female wrestler got released because she was doing cameos and Twitch and I don't know. McMahon was like, no, you're not I basically putting it. This is not his words. Basically, I own you. You're, I'm your boss. You're not allowed to advertise yourself that way.
McMahon is low key kind of I could understand why someone might hate his guts.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, you don't get this. You don't get that powerful and that much money without being ruffling a few feathers.
But I came across a What Culture, video on just how
can't sneeze in front of him.
He's just very own you type of guy. He can't even do any he reminds me of James Hetfield from Metallica when I saw that that one documentary. I'm so excited I said that word right off the gates. Mm-hmm. With Jason Newsted, his their old bass player, how he wanted to in one of these, every band takes some time off. Jason wanted to do other projects. He's a musician, and James is like, no, you're part of Metallica. You're only playing for Metallica and that type of shit. And it was that and other things, but it pushed Jason out. He was like, I'm a musician. If you're not going to let me do, my thing, I'm sorry, but I got to go. And it was looking back, I'm like, man, you're a selfish fucking asshole. Mm-hmm. Why can't you just let him do, and to this point, I don't know anything about the story, but if she was on Twitch, she's kind of growing her own brand, which is going to in turn help you fucking bring in more people.
The issue is he wanted her to grow he wanted more, and I don't know if she was I don't want to say she wasn't super PG. She wasn't
Paige.
Yeah. She wasn't that far, but even on her Instagram, once she got cut, she said fuck it and started doing all this stuff. And I remember she blew up on Twitch for a little bit because she'd have a bikini or her wrestling gear on. She'd dress like a I'm trying to think of the Mortal Kombat character who has the weird mouth.
Melina.
Yeah, I remember that was her big gimmick was Melina. And it was a rather revealing. If you want,
just like the character,
if you played the game,
when she's like this, you can't see me for those in the listening. For those viewing, when she goes like this, or just whoop, whoop.
But a big complaint about McMahon is there's no union with the rest. They're independent contractors.
No.
So he doesn't provide insurance and things like that. There's no 401k,
right?
Whatever. They get paid good money if you will. That's a whole other semantics. But he kind of manipulates the system by calling them independent contractors. And that's their point. I'm if I'm an independent contractor, I can independently do these other things. So he's pulled back on that a little bit. But there was so one of the bigger names outside of WWE is Xavier Woods. Austin Creed's his real name. He does a lot of video game stuff. He has his own YouTube page called Up Up Down Down. He just basically plays video. He loves video games. Right. They're bringing back G4. He's going to be a host on one of the shows. They very much WWE has wrapped their arms around him. Okay, I think on the WWE Network they have their own video game show with him on it, a Family Feud-esque show. They very much okay, this guy's making us money outside of here. Let's keep him close, sort of thing. While she was kind of doing her own thing. There's a few other wrestlers they've kind of followed suit with him that do streaming. I think they. By the way, this wrestler I'm talking about, Zelina Vega, she just recently got re-signed. So whatever happened, they've worked through. But again, WWE's kind of pulled back a little bit on it. But yeah, like I'm sure McMahon's a psychopath.
Do you think things will change once? I'm
as far as like the direction of WWE,
once he passes.
yes. So
I'm guessing Triple H is taking over.
yeah, that's so that Triple H and Stephanie.
Yeah.
I think Triple H will handle like the creative side of things, and Stephanie will handle like the big like she'll be the that's the thing about WWE is like they've done a great job of getting outside of the wrestling bubble, you know.
Yes.
They what's the word I'm looking for? Not global, but
The universe.
yeah, I guess universal marketing. Everyone knows what WrestleMania is. Like, even if you think wrestling's dumb and don't like it, you know what WrestleMania
Right.
is. It's just as like it makes as much money as like the Super Bowl does and everything, and it's more of a weekly event. Well, I guess Super Bowl's kind of a weekly event now too. But anyway, point is, I think Triple H will handle like the creative side of like, I think it'll be a little less your old school wrestling,
Yeah.
and maybe less over the top, and because like, God, I didn't mean to turn this into a wrestling podcast here.
But it's kind of it started off as like bosses, which is we're gonna get to that here soon.
Yeah, just a real quick view of it. Like NXT is like WWE made their own like minor leagues, and Triple H runs that, and he does a really good job of actually like, it's clearly like, and again, the whole point to NXT is like you're kind of learning on the job for the majors, people,
Right.
for WWE.
Yeah, it's a farm system.
Yeah, and so I think there's less scripting going on. There's obviously main point. Like, if you listen to any wrestler, Stone Cold, like any of the big names you think, Stone Cold, Rock, John Cena, CM Punk, all the good mic guys, Chris Jericho, they're given like a list of things to cover,
Yep.
and everything else they just kind of, I'm sure they have a plan of what they're going to say, but a lot of it, I don't want to say it's completely spontaneous, but they come up with whatever they're going to say. But McMahon will be like, all right, mention this match and mention the reason you don't like this guy is because of this, and you work off of it. And you can kind of tell that it feels more organic opposed to guys that are overly scripted. NXT is a little less scripted because Triple H probably has it less scripted. There's a little bit more, I would say the match qualities they feel more authentic. And again, the main thing I would say is everything feels less scripted,
Right.
less produced. And like Triple H has done a good job of building a few of these guys, and they have their own select fan base. And then when they get like promoted to Monday Night Raw, it's so weird. Like, this guy will be, okay, here's Sith Bauer. Like, we've built him up to be the main guy in NXT, and we put him on Raw, and now he's Kevin Jenkins, and like he's like this completely different character that he's
That's
built.
weird.
Yeah, he's built up this fan base, and all of a sudden they just like turn him to something else. I'm like,
See, I think that's a misfire.
yeah, and it's and whatever that's the thing. Like Triple H runs NXT, and he might see a specific thing in Sith Bauer, and now you're on Raw and SmackDown, and McMahon's like, I think we need this specific type of character on the show, and I pick you to be. You're gonna be the wizard.
See that exactly, and that's why I think like once he's gone and it's Triple H running the show, or like whoever runs the show, I think that there might be a little better about that, you know, because like you do bring in. It goes back to my whole thing with that girl on Twitch. Like you're bringing in your own fan base. You're only going to add to the WWE universe, you know. It's like people knew who CM Punk was before he was in WWE because of his name, because of who he is. You don't just ruin that and have him start from fucking square one, you know.
He's the guy that McMahon wanted to rebrand, but I get like Paul. That's why they call him a Paul Heyman guy, because Paul Heyman fought for him. Like, no, he is CM Punk.
Yeah. I don't understand that. That's that old school mentality, or not necessarily old school mentality, but that's like people that are like one directional and they just can't fucking see the other side of the you know, like they got this idea and they're gonna die on that hill. It was just
There's obviously a happy medium somewhere, because like McMahon is incredibly successful. He's doing something right.
Exactly.
I think the product would be, in my opinion, a lot. That's the weird thing about WWE is like a lot of its fan base is children, so they're gonna just kind of consume whatever you pour in front of them. but I think the product overall would be more entertaining with Triple H going forward.
There's something to be said about like your best managers are those that. Sorry, I'm speaking outside of the mic. We've always heard that the best managers are those that have started at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince started at the bottom, but not as a wrestler. Like
he did good. He did everything, but like at some point, I think I don't want to make it an ageist thing, but like sometimes maybe you get those too stuck in your ways.
Yep.
And you fall into your old patterns of
hardest people to train.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he's been successful, and one of my favorite things CM Punk ever said is the name when I talk about wrestling. I'm going to bring up he's probably my all-time favorite wrestler at this point.
I'll lose that.
But
forever.
he said like Vince McMahon is a millionaire, but could be a billionaire despite himself. Like he is unequivocally. Objectively, he is very successful. He has turned a product that is fake fighting into a worldwide phenomenon.
That's I've always felt that about Activision. Mm-hmm.
We always make that's usually the two comparisons.
Yep, it's just an easy bleed. They could be so much more if they just fucking did certain things right. And it's the frustrating part is when they don't see it, when they don't see what they could do. So I don't know the exact details on this, but apparently there's a Call of Duty overseas where it's kind of like the mobile app. And what's most popular about the mobile app is you could literally play any map, or not any map, but they've blended in all the maps. Treyarch, Infinity War, doesn't matter. They blended in all the guns, and they have like this. They took everything, every good aspect of every COD, and kind of put it in together. Why can't
COD All Stars?
Why the fuck can they not do that on the regular game? So you guys have had 15 CODs now, plus or minus, and you still don't know. Like, you still haven't been like, hey, what worked in COD 1? What worked in Advanced Warfare? What worked in the... And you can't fucking figure that out. And that shit is so frustrating. And I see it in a lot of places. I see it in my job and my current employer. They just... I could see how life could be so much easier if we did this way. And it's like, no, we're going to do this way. And it's... Nothing frustrates me more than when, like, you know the answer and you're like, ooh, and they're like, nah, first of all, we're not even going to pick on you. Second of all, we're going to do it our way, which is not the greatest way. Like, that shit fucking drives me crazy.
It's and it's tough being a manager sometimes. Like, I guess I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, but like some people just aren't fit for Michael Scott was a great salesman. He got turned into a manager because he was just very successful at that. And the next step is to go up. And he wasn't a good manager. Obviously, throughout the show, he had moments. He fell into, his branch was closed, but the only reason he stayed open is because the other guy leveraged his job for another spot. Like he fell into luck, but ultimately he wasn't a great manager. He was a good salesman, good guy, poor manager, and it kind of worked out for him. I think of two managers I worked for, not to name names, but one was just, I remember, like, if you had an idea, you had to somehow present it to him in a way that it was his idea. He was just always he always wanted to fly under the radar. That was his goal. He didn't want you to be too good that, like, corporate would keep an eye on you, and obviously you don't want to be too bad. Like, the problem is if you're too good, they expect more from you. He just wanted to just don't get noticed. So he was always very dismissive sometimes when it's not like I had like out of the box ideas like crazy, but he just didn't just clock in, clock out, don't fuck up. While my other manager was, I would even say, like, his problem was he'd go too far. He always wanted more. Like but he carried himself the same way. He wanted you going 120%. But like, he was the type of dude that, like, you could butt heads with, and like it wasn't like you feared you might be fired because you disagreed. Like I could be like, that's a dumb fucking idea. Like those exact words. Like I think that's fucking stupid. You better tell him why you think it's fucking
Right.
stupid. But he could receive that information.
To defend the first scenario, I think that's an upper management problem too.
For 100%.
You know,
100%.
I've told my team jokingly, but with a kernel of truth, like don't sell 110% of plan. Don't sell 60, 90, 95.
Yep.
Where you're right there. They can't yell at you for not making plan because you're close to it already. But if you make too much, you're going to pay the price next month because they're going to bump it. And that's money out of our pockets because our incentive bonus plan, whatever you want to call it, what the store makes affects it. So now you're paying the price for doing too good. And then if you do too bad, obviously, well, you're doing too bad. So it's just how the rules are, and it's an upper management problem. And I've always told them, it's like, I don't care what you do, just don't bring attention, to the store, because the moment you do, they just, they're looking for something always, and we have awful upper management. So I understand that way of thinking because you're looking for longevity. Like how could I keep coming in here, not having to talk to these people. By people I mean
Upper management.
Yeah. And I totally get that sentiment. 100% get that sentiment. And I think it shouldn't be like that because you're kind of capping yourself. I've always been this like, let's try to be the best we can, and let's try to just keep getting better and better and better and better. But there's sometimes there are companies out there where your upper management prevents you from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and the more
It's like a lose-lose scenario.
Yeah, the larger upper management is, the more unqualified people are probably hired there.
Yeah.
No different. There's like where I work, there's ultimately at the end of the day, like the two store managers I talked about, the one who was afraid of upper management, the funny thing is, I'm sure most people consider him the better store manager because he knew how to work upper management better than the other guy. The other guy didn't care about burning bridges,
right.
And like he expected himself to be the best, and he had no problem ruffling feathers and such, and ultimately he ended up leaving the company because he got burnt out by upper management.
Yep.
Ironically, the other one might even be retired now because the reason he was the way he was he was burnt out by upper management. I was looking at like reasons why people leave their jobs, and the number one is they quit their boss. Sure. I mean, I've never had a problem with all the companies I've ever worked for. Never had an issue with them. Aside from the booty patrol thing, which I you know what, I brought it up. I guess I should talk about it. So this is another thing big issue I have is when like people like follow blindly. I worked for a retailer out there that decided one day for a weekend sale of denim to give us badges. And literally said booty patrol on them. I mean, did you keep the badge, by the way? Because I would definitely keep the badge.
I mean, it might be somewhere, but no. It was a piece of paper you just folded and put inside a.
I thought they no, fucking crock.
It wasn't like an actual cop. Like,
I can't. Listen, you can't empower me with a piece of paper.
Yeah, and they wanted us to go around and be the booty police or the booty patrol and be like, ooh. Fuck. I got some
dead
jeans.
Ass is nasty.
I got some jeans that will make your booty look good. And
your ass is flat.
I mean, and don't quote me on that. It wasn't exactly like that, but it was awful. You imagine me
like a pop blister.
I'm a 6'3" male to just walk up to a woman that I don't know in front of her kids and be like,
by the way,
"Oh, girl,
got a lot of booty too.
Your booty don't look good with those jeans. Let's try these." And I the first time I read this, because we got like an email from upper management, and we're like, "This is stupid. Like this is a lawsuit waiting to happen." And it was, and I'm not trying to portray myself as this like Joan of Arc thing, but I was the only one that was like, "This is insane. We cannot do this." Everyone else in the store was like, "I think you're thinking a little bit too much on this," and I was like, What is happening right now? Now, obviously, this shit wouldn't even be considered. Well, who knows? People are stupid.
Yeah,
this wouldn't be considered nowadays.
Just takes one idiot.
Yeah. But this is another issue with like upper management is upper management tend to surround themselves. And I keep hearing this term a lot because I've been looking for new places to work, and I look at company reviews and I see that most companies are the same fucking thing. Everyone complains about the same fucking thing. Upper management is the quote unquote the boys club or some sort of like faction. But what usually what happens is and it's true. Upper management surrounds themselves with other like-minded thinkers or people that are not going to tell them, "Hey, what you just said, this is stupid." Mm-hmm. They're going to be like, "Oh, that's fabulous. That's a phenomenal idea," And no one said a fuck. The fact that this went through the chain of command and no one said anything about it. And 1 hour into the fucking day, they're like, "Yep, please don't. You just take the badges off." I'm like, it took you this long to figure it out.
I was just thinking, like, there is absolutely right now in this story you're speaking. I almost said the name of it. A 14-year-old girl walking in there, and from behind, she looks like she's 25. And I can just think of, like, if you're like, "Oh, that booty looks rugged," and she turns around and she's just got like pimples and brain, like, "What?" I'm like, "Uh-oh." Yeah. Uh-oh.
But this is the same, company that and they're not the only ones that have done this. But they've had shirts in the past that are inappropriate that went through.
Was that I remember was it the penis shirt?
Yes, the flowers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember
So it was a black penis inside of a white rose.
That's awesome.
And it was made out of different rosebuds, but the way it was put together, it was the first rose was bigger, then it was a shaft of roses, and then two big rosebuds at the bottom.
I want that shirt, by the way. If anyone, I got to look online.
It was going through a white rose head, and it was like this. There's no way this isn't a dick.
Yeah, that artist like just fucking pulled one over on everyone.
Oh yeah, I had a funny theory. It was not really like funny, but it's like they knew exactly what they were doing. And they're like, absolutely. No one's gonna notice this.
Yeah, they're like, this is. I'm gonna get them so good right now.
Yeah, because people are very like rah, where they're like they think things are a good idea.
Yeah, I mean sometimes people they also could just be like. My wife has a tradition of making cakes out of a penis mold. So I use it. I remember one year for Thanksgiving, she made a turkey and whatever. The feathers were all cocks, and she brought it over to my family's house, and no one noticed except my brother-in-law. Immediately was like, "Oh, those are penises." And so sometimes like you just need that. Like he sees a lot. He thinks about penis a lot. So. Yeah. He's just like he's like, "Oh yeah, those are cocks," and no one else noticed. Like maybe they did, and they're like, "Those are funny," and they just like, "Nah, there's no way those could be cocks or something." So I guess, but you need that one person
to just
that sees the cock.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like art in a way. You know, you go to a museum and you see something, you're like, "God. Is it me or does that look like a dick?"
That's a penis.
Or I can't think of her name right now, but there's this this woman, this artist. She's a painter. Something O'Keefe. Her last name is O'Keefe, and
O'Keefe.
Getting close. Because she paints a lot of like lilies and flowers, but you're like, this is totally a vagina. Mm-hmm. This is a vagina, and I don't know her that well, so that might be her intention. I mean, it has to be her intention. I mean, because it's on a Family Guy.
Oh, is it?
Because they're like asking her, it's like, so where do you get your ideas for your paintings? And she's like, it's just hilarious. But yeah, it's like a lily. It has like the little stem in the middle, and then like the opening. I'm like, that's a fucking clit. Like there's no way. I don't give a shit. Like if she starts saying, "I just love lilies," maybe
it's a game of saying like, how many men can identify this?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it just goes back to like I guess the moral of the story is like some people just upper management tends to just have these ideas, and it goes back to Vince McMahon. Like he's just throwing things on the wall, and sometimes it sticks, and sometimes it crashes and fucking burns.
I mean, and I don't know, this could probably be broken down to like more of a societal thing, but when you're in those positions, you usually want to play it safe.
Right.
And then because playing it safe usually at the end of the day works out in the end. Maybe you could have been more successful, but like if you take a big swing and miss, that's I don't know, it depends how big of a swing you take, I suppose. But I guess like I get like from his standpoint, you've just been this successful for this long. You've gone through how many different eras of your company, different, like they've always kind of repackaged themselves constantly. So yeah, for the most part, like and it's easy to pick apart the things he's done poorly too, because he's done something successful he's done something right to be as successful as he has. But yeah, sometimes to go back to, I guess this is me more or less speaking on Vince McMahon and not upper management, so I'm going back to talking about wrestling. But seems like there's been a few times he's kind of just dropped the ball and had an opportunity to be better than he is, I guess, or to have the company built up more than it is.
And in his defense, I guess the catch-22 is that you can't be creative without taking risks, you know. And I'm going to take it back to Call of Duty, like Advanced Warfare. Like, they took a huge risk, you know. I still think it panned out. Yeah, I don't care what anyone says. But it's tough to be creative, you know, and think you're going to hit every time. However, I think what makes things, I think, better is if you have a good team around you that's going to be honest. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that's the one factor that I think we're missing in, I think, most of our jobs, is having a team around you that you could have the floor and be like, sir, with all due respect, you're a fucking idiot. Don't get mad. I said with all due respect, man. Where are your balls? Actually, I saw that movie the other night. It just, you know, to just be able to trust your team to be like, this is stupid. I don't think this is going to work. And I just haven't seen that. And literally every job I've ever had, I've never had an upper management that was open to people's idea. It was their way, or fuck you, go find somewhere else. You're not a team player. You're not, you know. It just makes it tough. It makes it tough to, you know, especially for someone like me that I tend to be like, one of my hidden things is creativity. I'm creative. I don't get to use it all the time, but sometimes I think outside the box and I'm like, wait a second, maybe no one has thought of this. And no one did. And I just hate having to work for someone that just, we're going to do it my way. I don't care if I burn the fucking ship down. So I wanted to transition this, but basically we've been talking about like bosses and upper management, how people quit their boss and not the company. Because this is something that kind of been dealing with lately. And I think a lot of people, maybe a lot of people are dealing with this. Maybe you've dealt with this. I don't know if you have. I think it's something I thought I was interested to talk about, just in case, you know, someone else is going through this. I've always been like this when it comes to jobs, just loyal to a fault. I wish I was a little bit more cutthroat and just one of these people that's like loyal to nobody, just a fucking paycheck. And then just, you know, I get a job and I'm already looking for the next one. And you might have heard this in the past, in the retail industry, they've always said that your best shot at getting promoted is switching companies. And it might not just be the retail industry. It could be, you know, could be other, could be anything. But I've kind of stuck it out. I'm not like that. Like, I see me like leaving a company as like being a quitter, and that's just not in my DNA. I don't like just turning my back. I just, you know, I like to just grind. I'm a grinder. Not that I like grinder. He
doesn't like it either.
And every company that I've ever left, it's just been because I can't be here for another day. Like, and it got to that point. Sometimes I look back and I hate myself for having it, like, I guess, waiting around for it to get to their point and not just like cutting cords early. But I never really realized how bad not enjoying your job is until just recently. And I think it's because I've waited, like, I got to that point again where I'm like, I can't be here for another day. And I sucked it up and stuck through it for another 3 years after that. And man, it's, you know, I was looking at these like TED Talk videos and these like things online of people describing like awful places to work at. And the one thing that hit me the most, which I was wondering why that was, but it was when you like literally hate your job, it's going to start affecting things you like doing outside of your job, like hobbies or whatever. Man, lately, and I know this time of the year is usually the doldrums for video gaming, you know, but I used to do YouTube videos. I would stream. We used to do, I mean, it's kind of like a different thing, but I have zero interest in doing anything. Like I come downstairs.
How much do you masturbate a day?
Huh?
How much do you masturbate a day? Has it cut into your jerking off?
No, well
Okay.
that's a biological need. But
Depression affects everything.
But like those things, like I don't want to watch TV. Nothing in TV is fun. I can't get into shows. I hardly watch movies. I did watch the movie you recommended, though, The Hunted. Mm-hmm. It was okay. It was a good 1-2 time watch. And surprisingly gory.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa, all right. And one of the, what's her name?
Emma Roberts?
No. Who's the one at the end?
Hillary Swank.
Probably like one of the hottest Hillary Swank.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, if they put that picture of her on the office,
vicious,
everyone would have been like, she is hot.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess somebody might call it depression. I don't think it is. I'm sure it's like it's part of it.
Different degrees of depression.
Right. It's not clinical depression. Yeah. We're like, fuck, you know, this is the worst. And
kind of snuck in an Arnold impression there when you said that.
But yeah, and that hit me so fucking hard to realize that I'm like, I don't find streaming, content creating, playing video games fun, you know, and don't want to watch TV. And then the next step was family.
I'm like, what about spending time with your family?
Yeah, and then which it hasn't affected that, even though my wife could argue that I've been moody and stuff like that. So that's kind of like where I drew the line. Or I was like, okay, no matter what happens, I need to get out. I need to find another place to work, even if it's a pile of shit. Most jobs, even though they're a pile of shit, they're at least good for a year or two before it starts to dawn on you that how bad it is. And it got to that point, and I just, I wish I could go back and leave sooner. I guess it's the best way of saying it. And I'm grateful for my company. Like, they took care of me during COVID and all that stuff. But it's like just for mental health. It's I've never realized how bad it could actually be because this is subtle. You know, it's like this slow burn that you're not really going to notice until it's there. And that's kind of what happened with me. And I started to think, I kept blaming the whole not wanting to stream and not, record content and all that stuff at like the fact that there's just, it's like the doldrums of video gaming. Like there's really nothing out there, but really there is. It's just, I'm just not in the mood. Like I'm not in the mood. Finally, I started playing the show, but, so if anyone else is out there, who's like in that same boat, like get the fuck out.
There's a lot of meat on this bone that you just.
I did.
Out there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cycle back to the beginning.
But I had to explain the whole steak that you're eating before,
I would say.
Like, if you've ever been in a point where you're like you show up, like you're driving, like I was like white knuckling to work. Mm-hmm. I was like, fuck, like a head-on collision wouldn't be the worst thing right now.
Yeah. So as far as I've always been better with like, this is the devil I know, the devil I don't know, as far as like being upset. I worked at a place for almost 15 years. There were definitely peaks and valleys. Near the end, it very much valleyed. Yeah. I now work for a company owned by one of my best friends and one of my other best friends. Like, I am incredibly, like, once I started working there, I was like, oh wow, this is a lot better. Like it really was. And like usually, so when I hear like people bitch about their job. I don't mean to like make it sound so I don't know.
Complain.
Yeah, whatever. My point is, I guess I've been there where I really did not like my job, and I didn't realize how much I disliked my job till like got a new job.
Yep.
So like, try to look at things on the bright side for the most part. But it did. So take a step back, looking for like you say you've constantly like you got out of a place where you hated it. That's a scary. What's scary about that is like yes, you might be comfortable with going somewhere that you might pick another bad job that you won't like just to get out. Like I guess the cycle might repeat itself. I took a pay cut where I went with a company that he started a year and a half prior. So like I went a whole new like there's a lot of risk involved.
Yep, high risk.
Especially like we survived a pandemic, but like it was touch and go.
Right.
Obviously at the time I didn't think, but those I didn't think about a pandemic, but I thought about like we go into possible another recession. Where does that put us? But I was willing to finally take that jump. I also left on good enough terms that like worst case scenario I could always probably go back to where I worked. I don't like the thought of having to start from the bottom again, but like that is an option if I needed to. But yeah, I was I was upset. I remember I knew I was leaving probably about 4 months prior. I had to get to the end of the year to receive specific bonuses. And that startled me. To receive specific bonuses, I had to make it to the end of the year. So like literally January 1st, I put in my 2 weeks. January 15th, I started my new job. Which my buddy was even like, bro, you can like take a week or two. And I'm like, nope, I'm like, that's fucking go. I remember the very first day we got like 7 inches of snow and I drove in through a fucking snowstorm and I felt bad. We would typically he'd be like, bro, we ain't like the day, like we ain't doing nothing today. Like just stay home. But he like ended up showing up because he knew how excited I was and he didn't want us anyway, long story short, I was so thrilled to leave the place that I drove in a snowstorm for like literally nothing nothing happened that day. It wasn't like an orientation. We just kind of like chilled. I've always been good about not letting work affect my life and vice versa. I've always felt like sometimes life ain't going the way you want and work was always kind of a good escape for that. Once it started affecting, like, yes, my wife could see, like, immediately she could see how much more happy I was when I left.
Right.
Like, that immediately she's like, oh, wow. And part of the reason I left is I just had more time. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bitter towards the place I was at. It's very similar to what you said. Like, I didn't like working for my boss. And at the end of the day, it was really the hours. I probably could have stuck it through without the hours. But yeah, like I don't want to say like, yeah, I suppose depression is a good way to put it. Like there's some form of it. You just kind of start not wanting to do it. I just remember being at work and just like, I'll save that for tomorrow. My heart just wasn't into it because I didn't respect the people I worked with.
I think a bad employer makes you a bad employee.
Sure.
And that's another thing because I've always been, that try to be the best, like the hardest worker in the room sort of thing, always go, 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 go. But man, when you work for a bad employer, a bad boss, and not just your boss, like, sometimes your boss is just kind of like, he's just a patsy. It's most cases, it's his boss, as in this case. And I'm the same thing. I was like, should I do this? Fuck it. I'll do it next week. I'm like, man, this is not me. I'm not this employee, but it's a bad mental thing that it's a weird thing that happens, that it changes just the way you think, your perspective, the stress.
I think if you're bringing work home with you, and I'm not going to pretend that like there'd be bad days at some time. Like I'm not going to be like even when I was at my happiest, I wouldn't come home sometimes frustrated with work.
Right.
We're human beings.
Happens.
Yeah, for the most part, I was always pretty good at separating the two. And that's the thing. When I would catch myself being frustrated with work, I'm like, what the fuck am I even worried about right now, bro? I'm not even there. Like, that can wait till tomorrow sort of thing. But when you can't escape it, when it's living rent free in your head, if you will, that's when you probably should start looking elsewhere. Because you're not, listen, there's been many a times at my job that I was frustrated and had a bad day. Like, it's impossible not to be that way.
You're going to go 0 for 4 one day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just how it is. No matter how good you are, obviously, you know.
But then I remember how, if I had $1 for some of the frustrating days I'd have, I just remember how unhappy I was before, and like, just suck it up, Matt.
Yeah. Well, that whole suck it up, Matt, I know you're kind of like this, you know, a similar mentality. That sometimes bites you in the ass, you know, in the long run. I mean, you know, mentally, I'm someone that, you know, I do not wear my emotions on this, you know, on my sleeve. Maybe for the people that are close to me, but I've always been, you know, leave personal life out the door from your business and leave your, you know, your work stuff outside of the door from your home. But it gets to a point where it's like a slow cancer that just starts to sneak in, and then all of a sudden you can't control it anymore. And then it's obviously not healthy to keep shit bottled in, you know, but I'm old school mentality. You know, I've always joked around that my dad was born in 1940, but really might have been 1740. You know, like he's just old fucking this. You know, men don't do that. Men don't, you know,
Just
and
raping women,
pillaging,
stealing children. We shouldn't joke about it.
And I think, you know, obviously in our society, listen, it's a sensitive, you know, subject, but you know, there's more. The whole men having to be men is not necessarily a healthy thing. I do still think that men need to be men, but.
What do you mean?
To a certain extent, like the whole like not show our emotions, to you always be like the, you know, like the rock in the lake that's not going to sink, that's going to, you know, be the captain of the ship that stays with the boat, that type of like, you know, mentality. Yeah, that's good and all, and we do need that, but to a certain degree, like I think it gets to a point where it's just not healthy. And the problem is it sneaks in. It's not like, hey, here's mental illness and depression. Can we come in? It's a slow. It's an infection, and then it's kind of tough to get yourself out of it. For example, I should have probably left my job 3 years ago, and I sucked it up because of that not macho mentality, but that not being a quitter. You know, and it's taken a toll. I got more fucking gray hairs. I'm like, you know, like, and stress, all that stuff. Not mental illness,
dysfunction.
No, that crazy. Is just there's nothing keeping that down. But you know, not mental illness like someone else has that's like clinical, but there's definitely something going on where I'm just not as happy, and just applying and interviewing for other positions, I just broke my finger.
Yeah, that sounded disgusting.
My knuckle cracked.
I don't know if you guys heard that, but I almost puked. God damn it. Oh my God, bones sticking out of the skin.
I went to snap my finger and my knuckle cracked.
It sounded like your wrist.
Oh, shit. Anyway, yeah, they still look good. My mood completely changed. Like, obviously, you and I have been talking about like doing this for the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. I've been writing down things.
I've been 6 weeks.
Well, yeah, but like I've been so excited about just like, because here's the thing too about like being creative. If you're like if you're in like a mental cloud, that gets in the way of the whole creativity. Which me playing video games, streaming, all that stuff, all that shit's like creative juices where it gets pushed aside. So I have nothing. I guess I started to think, what am I doing to enjoy my time? And there was really not a lot.
Yeah, like that's only a few seconds.
Well, yeah,
moments,
yeah.
And then the depression really kicks in because then you start thinking about the rest of your life. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, like we've talked about this, like working retail, like it's a side effect from working retail where I'm like, I don't want to go do this, I don't want to do that. Imagine like not like working retail and hating your fucking job.
I'm just saying, I think it's not just everyone gets stuck in a rut at their job. You do the same thing, especially if you've been doing something for so many years. You get it's hard to keep that that day one mentality. It's just it's damn near impossible.
Well, and that same mentality is what makes it hard to leave too, because you don't want to relearn something.
Yeah, and like I said, I
and you put in your time. You got your stripes. You've earned your,
There's definitely times I thought about leaving before, even like transferring to different stores. And like I said, I was more comfortable with the devil I knew than the devil I didn't, sort of thing. Like the grass always seems greener,
Right.
but is it really?
Right.
Like-
It's tough. It's like a relationship. You're dating someone for so long. I remember when like my ex and I broke up. I didn't want to break up because it was like 3 years, and I saw it more of like I just wasted the last 3 years of my life.
It was like in Call of Duty when I accidentally did the erase emblem or whatever, and I was like, oh, all that work
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore.
Yep. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. Literally, this last 3 months, whatever, how long, it might have been like, I don't even know how long into that I did that. No one probably knows what I mean, but I deleted all my stats because I wanted an emblem. I regret it to this day. Not that my stats are great, but I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? I'm back to day one. I'm like,
Right.
I get nothing extra for this except this emblem.
Yeah.
This is boring. It's the worst.
Which in hindsight, it's not as bad because, listen, if you need to find a job right now, I'm sure the 15 years at your previous employer, like that's great on your resume. Like you probably find a retailer quick. I'm not going to do that again before I fuck my finger up.
Usually, yeah.
I have a really good resume. When it comes to retail, I could probably get any retail job I want whenever I want. But it's retail. I don't want those jobs. Like I've been looking for more like stuff that's for me or whatever. But I think there's a thin line, and you have to kind of know when that line gets crossed of where, is it time to leave? That's why I said at the beginning, I wish I had that mentality where it was always like on to the next one, on to the next one. Can it make me an asshole? Sure. Employers would probably think I'm a piece of shit, but ultimately,
Yeah, but employers churn and burn. Like, who cares what the
right? Like,
employer thinks?
I mean, but that goes back to I've always been loyal to a fault, where it's like, should I be less loyal to these people?
It's what gets me triggered when people bitch about like athletes changing teams. I'm like, yeah, but the team would just like if you're not producing what the team wants, they're shipping you out. So
Right.
like,
That's a great point.
and it is what it is. Just it's business.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. One of the theories of what's going on in my current with my current employer is they don't like people that've been there for a while, because they use little phrases like, "Well, we're still building the plane as we're flying it," and all that shit. It's been 8 years. That shit hasn't
really
taken.
dumb analogy.
That
by the
shit
way.
has
Why would
not
the plane-
taken off.
Why? Yeah. Why would it take off if it's not built yet? That doesn't. I could complain for the next half an hour how dumb of an analogy
I
that is.
fucking hate that analogy. And they just like hiring bots that are going to be like the people that are going to be like, oh yeah, fucking Booty Patrol, that works, great idea. They're like, they hire those people, and then they see me as a threat because I'm like, this is stupid. Like you're not wowing me. Wow me, go. And it also doesn't help that I'm more experienced in that company than literally all my bosses, everyone. So that also does not help, and it tends to rub people the wrong way. And not that I'm someone that goes around letting people know that, hey, I know more than you.
He's usually a good rubber.
My one thing I always say is like, leave me the fuck alone.
Big hands, but they're soft.
Let me do my job. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm going to do the best I can do to get your numbers. Just leave me alone. But that's not the case anymore. So just looking at applications, I actually had a somewhat of an offer. We'll find out on Friday. My mood has just skyrocketed. But in the same token, I'm also pissed. I'm pissed that I'm in this position because it's like more hassle, more stress. Like it's a different kind of stress, obviously, and it might all be for the, a means to an end. But I also do resent the fact that I'm in, like, for example, my ex-girlfriend. Best thing she could have done. I wouldn't have met my wife, et cetera. I wouldn't have my kids. There's that way of looking at it. But then I also resent her for wasting 3 years of my fucking life.
Yeah, I mean, but you should let go of that resentment. I get my point. I get where you're coming from, and I get I get the stress of like feeling like you need to get out.
Right.
Like that's no one that like you feel like
Especially with a
prisoner.
family.
Yeah, exactly. That's
I mean, you gotta bring money in.
Again, in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
That like looks like we're staring down the eyeballs in another one too. Like, but
So, so I just thought of this tweet. I'm sure it was fake. Well, maybe. But Delta Airlines was like, who named it Delta?
God damn it.
And then Corona tweeted, yes, welcome to the suck.
Yeah, for sure. Like fucking idiots. But
No one was flying you anyway.
Yeah.
Calm down. If anything's going to help you.
yeah, you give like a Delta
It's still not Spirit.
yeah, a Delta promotion, you know, a Delta discount. If you've got the virus, you can fly for free. Anyway, but like, there's no point in like looking back on and regretting it. I get in the media like writing and tell. I get regretting it right now because you don't when you start the new job, that shit should just go away.
And it will.
But it's hard to like let those things go though. It's hard to not let it creep up, especially like that's the thing about like, again, I'm not saying you're depressed, but that's the thing about depression, if you will. Again, there's different degrees, whatever. When you're sad, however you guys want to term it, it brings all that old shit up. Like at the end of the day, like your body's like, oh, remember this also made you feel like shit, and this made you feel like shit, and this made you feel like
right.
shit.
You're just thinking fucking glass half empty.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is therapeutic to me. Like, and ultimately, we kind of got cut off there by technical issues, so I don't really know how to land. This might be a little clunky here, but this just talking things out, just the way I viewed this podcast when we started. I remember my buddy asking like, "What is your guys' goal?" And I'm like, the podcasts I like to listen to are just like kind of dudes being dudes, if you will. Got people just broing it out, like
shooting the
friends
shit,
having fun, and that having a conversation. I'm not here to enlighten you about too many things. I'm more or less just like, you're kind of hanging out with us is how I view it. And even more so, like I haven't been out on the road too much with work this past year. I've been at home a lot, so I don't really listen to podcasts as much as I used to, because like I used to like just my trips to work. Sometimes I might be in my car for 8 hours, so it'd be fun like listening to different podcasts that just like felt like I was like hanging out with them. And so I guess that's always been my vision. And ultimately, like, yeah, it's when you see your buds, you know, when you're just broing out, if you will, dudes being dudes, chicks being chicks. I don't know, is that a thing? Chicks and dicks.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
I think going back to Joe Rogan, what I like about his I mean, obviously he's going to he's bringing in people that, you know,
at this point, like,
but it's still like conversations, which is, that's like, because like most of these things are like, I see a lot of podcasts or just when people have guest speakers, it's usually like an interview. What's cool about the Joe Rogan podcast, yeah, it isn't like a subtle interview, but it's more like a conversation.
Yeah, it's him talking about hunting.
Well, he gets people to like kind of, he has a knack for getting people to drop their guard.
Sure.
Like Kanye West, like he's an awkward dude, and it was really awkward at first. And Joe Rogan, he has a patience of a saint, and he just kept like softening him up, and it got to a point where then Kanye's let loose and just relaxed. Elon Musk is another one. They got that fucker to smoke weed, and that's the other part I like about podcasts. They smoke weed, drink, and it's pop edibles. Like I think he did acid with
I didn't know that.
with no, not acids or shroom. I think it was shrooms with
Maybe that's shrooms.
who's the fucking the guy with all the tats in his face?
Post Malone.
Post Malone. I'm like, who the fuck does? And you could tell they were like on something. Like that shit got off. But yeah, like basically, ultimately, the idea is everyone has a niche, right? And you know, we're not here to force our opinions on anyone. We're not fucking doctors. We're not psychologists and shit like that. So it's just more like, hey, we're here. If you want to listen, great. If not, you know, there's 7 billion other people on the planet.
For the most part, yeah, we're not too try not to be like too political or things like that. We just talk about things we like.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Video games, sports, chicks.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds.
But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I wanted to make it because it's happening now, so it's fresh. It's kind of tough to go back and rehash, like, especially to your point, when you're like negative and all that stuff.
If we had this conversation in what I think it was 2018, I switched jobs, I would be a little bit more. I would reflect on it a lot more poorly.
Right. Because you remember more like
you'd have me right in the heart of the breakup.
Right, exactly. So you're more emotional and stuff like that. So I could have gone way deeper, but I didn't want to spend, like
just the balls hanging out.
An hour just ranting on, how bad it is. But it's unfortunate that it happens to a lot of people where you might be working for a good company, but just the people that are leading it is just, they've been to learn. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Go fuck yourself, Brad.